Okay, we're back. We are back. And we're back into a game that, yeah, I've been kind of lagging on getting back into, which is No Man's Sky. All right, so let's see. Which file should we start off from? Um, how about, I believe this is our GEC. Hey, Brock. So, again, I haven't logged into this in a while, so I'm pretty sure that this is my GEC file. Let's go ahead and do some stuff. I wonder if they've actually updated anything, changed anything. They tend to do that a lot of the time when I kind of walk away from this game for a little bit. So we'll see. We shall see. But I got this idea. I'm gonna build like a giant, like bug-looking structure, like straight up insect with like legs, maybe even spider. I don't know. But I think that's gonna look interesting. I just got to see if I can do it. Yep, this is my gag. Okay. So, let's see. I had one legendary, boom, two legendary, and my living ship. Let's see. Do I have anything in my living ship? Just some basic stuff. Blaze javelin. Let's check this out. Okay, so my Blaze Javelin is actually fully modded. I was probably planning on like selling that or something like that. Let me just organize this stuff. Again, I haven't signed into this game in a little while, so I just have to kind of figure out exactly why things are in my inventory at the moment. And what did I have refining? Living slime. Okay, we'll just keep on refining that.
Technology recharge.
Matter. I got some salvage data. Okay. Well, let's go upstairs. I don't know, maybe I should use one of my regular ships. The living ships are cool, but, you know, I don't know. Let's see. Oh, I had ships out on missions. Let's check this out. Okay, some geocidite and some convergence cubes. Iridesite, geocidite, okay. Yeah, I mean, honestly, I mean, I don't know what kind of, you know, spawned that idea, but I don't know. It just seems like an interesting idea. Make something that looks like a bug, you know? Let's see, feline liver.
Inventory full.
Bittersweet cocoa? Huh. That's different. That is different. It did not used to refine into this before. Okay. Well, bittersweet cocoa. Cool. Sugar, sugar, sugar. What can I make into sugar? I think, what, sweet root? What else can I make into sugar? Oh, yes, that's right. Cactus flesh. Cactus flesh into cactus nectar, which then refines into sugar. Ah, it does not. Okay. Well, it was worth a try. I wonder what bittersweet cocoa refines down into. Yeah, unstable gel. Sure, I'll make that. Why not? And what else do we have? I should probably take out the refined products. Yeah.
Inventory full. Units received.
Okay. Real quick, I'm just gonna check my inventories. I mean, again, I haven't been on this in a while, so I don't exactly remember what I have. Okay. Yeah, I got a bunch of extra shit in here. Good. Okay. We can put this in here. Geology cannon. I'll keep that just in case. Positron, phase beam, hyperdrive. What is this? Shield. Okay. So regular elements. Okay. Yeah, let's pull out the 20 stack. Pull out the 20 stack there. That away. Okay. Convergence cubes. Yeah. Go ahead and sell those. Good.
Units received. Units received. Units received.
Okay, so that takes care of all of that. Let's drop this in here. So that's 173. I don't believe I have anything left, but I will. You know what? Screw it. Doesn't matter. Let's refine that down, and I guess let's get out of here. First and foremost, though, let's see if we can send our ships out on any missions. Combat, industrial, combat. Okay, well, combat. What do I have? So I do have 2 combat vessels. Let's grab him. And what is that? Merchant, trade, support vessel. What else? Industrial. Balance, discovery. Well, there is one more I can do combat patrol wise. Not enough gas. Not enough gas. Okay, dihydrogen. I only have 89. Okay. Well, that's good enough for now. Okay, no upgrades yet. Well, let's go.
Orbital station coordinates received.
Okay, that's a Bikini system. No thanks. We're only doing Gex. Only Gex systems in this one. Alright, so I'm right there. Galactic Core is there. Okay, so I did discover it. It's an Arctic planet. Do I have a base here? Yes, I do. I think I have 2, actually. Yeah, I have 2 on this. Cool. Oh, yeah, that's right. Now I remember. Okay, okay, okay. Remember, I set up a second base here because there was a portal I needed to go down. Alright, what do we got? Eliminate hazardous flora. You know what? That's pretty good. I'll take it. And I think we are going to have to get some jets for this guy. Let's see. How much Quicksilver do I have? I have 4,800. Okay, we got a hell of a lot. Okay, let's see. Base building parts, gestures, appearances. Okay. I don't know. What do you think would be better? A red jetpack, considering the color scheme of our guy, or the antimatter jetpack? Thinking one of those. I could always though grab another egg as well. Or I could pick up another void egg. I don't know. What do you think? Red or antimatter? I think red would look nice on him. And the antimatter is a little bit expensive, so red wouldn't be bad. Yeah, let's do red. Screw it. I'll get it. And I can always pick up another void egg later as well. Oh, nice. Good. Alright, looks like I picked the right one then. Okay, did the backpack. Yeah, there we go. Okay, I have no new milestones. How about, what do you want? What do you want, sir? Okay. Not a lot of nanites, but oh well. Alright, well, nobody wants to join, so let's start her up. It's a Korvac system. Struggling, intermediate. Okay. Right here, star bulbs. This chromatic fog planet. Okay. Okay. May as well get those scanned into the system. Okay. Hazardous flora. Hazardous flora. Well, it would seem that there's none around us. Yeah, this is the one I want to use. Okay, cool. We got some over there at least. Okay, is there any more? Yes, there's a couple more over here. At least it's not screwing us.
Received.
280 meters that way. Okay, well, I have to get one of these anyways. Where is it? Oh, it's inside of this rock. You know what? Screw it. I don't care. It's not going to do like any damage to me anyways, right? Seriously? Of course I know what it is. There Okay, so just one more. One more. Yep, there's one right there. Funny how it doesn't show up on the visor. Is that ammonia? How much ammonia do I have? Oh, I've got plenty. Okay, let's go then. Okay, what do we got? Raid a planetary depot for a warp hypercore? You know what? That's a little bit more trouble than it's worth, to be totally honest. damage systems. Let's see.
Technology prepared. Technology prepared.
Oh, it is in here and in back. I was thinking of actually buying like the, you know, the leggings and the shirt from the Nexus, but honestly, I like,
Technology prepared.
you know, the Gek standard cloth. I think it actually fits a lot better. That's how I would imagine a Gek to be, like a Gek firstborn to be. You know what I'm saying? A mixture of style and badassery. Alright, let's swap ships really quick to the warp ship
Threat detected.
and find an interesting system. I don't know, what kind of planet do you think I should go on? Maybe like a glitch planet or something like that would be good. And a little bit of mucus. Actually, not mucus, more or less my chronic cough that I get because I smoke way too much. Consequence of smoking like a chimney.
Warning. Threat detected.
Ooh, yeah, we could always do like an uninhabited system. Water. Yeah, why not? Let's check it out. So I'm thinking insect, not like a centipede, but like more like a, I don't know, your standard insect. Oh. So I'm thinking standard insect in shape, 6 legs with a, you know, with an I may actually do, you know what? We could do we could do more of an arachnid, you know, 8 legs, some mandibles, all that type of stuff. Ossified planet, okay. What we got here? Okay, let's see. I would prefer to do this on a glitch planet. I think it would probably be better. Okay. Yeah, let's do it on this bubbling planet. Why not, right? Alright, let me just swap ships real quick. Yes, well, actually, speaking of which, yes, a crab or a lobster may actually be a good option in this case. Why? Because they're technically the insects of the sea, you know? Alright, let's go to this bubbly planet. Maybe a lobster, you know, since we didn't get to name the Cyclops when we were playing Subnautica, since we didn't actually get to name that, you know, red lobster of death, I think maybe we should,
Hostile scan detected.
yeah, let's do a lot. Let's see if we can make a lobster.
Warning. Threat detected. Hostile ships approaching.
Maybe we should stick with the bug though, honestly. I don't know. I have a hard time making up my mind. Just that easy. Jeez. What a joke. I don't know. Yeah, maybe a lobster might be nice. Alright, let's find a nice flat spot to go ahead and do this. Now, I did see a very, very small update that was applied like a couple days ago. I wonder if they actually added anything. It was a very, very small update. Here seems good as any. Let's set it down right here and see what we can do. And of course, let's see if we're near anything good. Power, no, just gas vein. Yeah, that's right. I mean, that's how it always turns out with us, you know? Like, start building something and then it starts changing.
Units received.
Yeah, we're just near like a gas pocket.
Technology recharge.
Was kind of running low on dihydrogen. Let's pick some up. Alright, so what we'll do is we'll go near this one. Hopefully we can find a power vein right next to it. I would love it if they started adding more glitch worlds. Okay, an indium deposit. That's useful. We got. Oh, yes. Nice. We're next up. 3. Okay, 320. These frothing planets are always so weird looking. I mean, just a barren world covered in bubbles. Ooh, that looks like a nice spot to build right over there. Okay, 100 meters. Past it. Now it's a C, so it's not all that great, but it's something. It's better than building a million freaking solar panels. Okay, 300 meters out. Alright, indium, oxygen, and power. Perfect. Okay, so from this source, what do I got? I'm 302 away, and I'm 345. Okay, so yeah, let's go roughly about 160 in this direction. Okay, distance, what, 178? Okay. 257, 183. Okay, so 210, 189. 208. Okay. So pretty much right here. Let's build it. Where the hell is it? There it is. And what color? What color? Let's go with red. Red. For the lobster. Alright, claim that shit. Alright, and where should we build it? We've got some options. In that valley right there might be good. That is one interesting looking thing. Okay, well, that doesn't look very conducive right there to building. this does right here, though. Why not? Let's do it. That area right there looks really good. Okay, so let's start. Structures. How are we going to build this, and what are we going to build it out of? Large? Nah, I don't think large will do. Hmm. Okay, I could start using like this for its tail. I mean, the curved parts should work, I think. Otherwise, what we can do is we can build it out of basic pieces. Basic pieces will at least guarantee me I could use like roofing panels and stuff like that for the sides to get the angles on it. I think that might work. Okay. Okay. All right. So, what do we start with? Head or the tail? The head or the tail? What do we start with? Um, Maybe we should start with the tail. I think that would be nice. Let's see. We'll make what? Metal? Yeah, metal might be a nice product to use. And we'll make it the same. Red. So we'll start with the tail. Let's go. And what about maybe about 3 wide? Start with that. Okay, and what I'm going to do is I'll use these kind of flooring pieces so I can, or I mean these small walls so I can use those in a fashion where I can attach a roof to it and not have to worry about the roof conflicting with the floor. So in this particular case, I think for this, ooh, yes, I have an idea. All right, so what we do is we start with that. Let me get to high ground so we can get advantage. All right, and what I could do is how a lobster's tail goes. I mean, you've got 3 main Sitchin plates that go into the back, right? Figure we can do one and then standard floor, where are you? Okay. One here like this. yes, I have to build the small walls first. Yeah, let's get rid of this. Now, I'm not going to make this one a super monstrosity, like huge-wise, but you never know. It might turn into one in the end. Right? So I'll have it like that, but when it comes to roofing, I can use this interior corner piece to make kind of a connect like that, right? Damn, it's been a little while actually since I built one of these types of structures. Ep.1 is back. Alright, let's get back up to a higher elevation so we can kind of see how that looks. Okay, so I think that kind of works as the three-prong tail section, right? From there, we're going to need basic floors. And then we're going to need, let's see, roofing wise, what can we use? Probably this type of roof, but I do want to put those mini walls up first. And of course, we might scale this up, we might scale it down, who knows? This is the fun thing about building, right? Your intergalactic set of Legos. Okay, ran out of standard carbon. That's fine. You know what? I already am going to change my mind with this. And let's get some carbon brewing. Dust. Looks like I'm gonna have to process some ferrite dust as well. Oh, I've got plenty. What am I worried about? Alright, so what I will do is this. Let's get rid of this wall. Get rid of this wall. Okay, we'll go for a mini wall on each side of this. From there, I I am going to build, just so I can kind of get this started. I'm going to change the configuration in just one sec, but I do need to get it started. And then we use standard size floors from there. Now I can build that. Boom. Okay, I may extend these out as well, make them larger. But I think that'll do. From there, let's go ahead and start extending the floors. And you know what? Maybe we should listen to something in the background, yeah? Here. Yeah, let's listen to something in the background. Why not, right? You know what? I always love listening to TheVolgun. The Exploring series is actually pretty cool, but I do like TheVolgun. TheVolgun is definitely my favorite voice actor when it comes to reading these things. How about a nice long one? Where the dragons went. That's actually a pretty long one, but it's semi-boring. Um, ooh, yes, yes, yes. I love this one. The Reluctant Dimension Hopper.
Good afternoon, everyone.
Let me turn that down.
My name is Dr. Miller, and the SCP we're going to be looking at today is SCP-507. Object Class: Safe. Special Containment Procedures. SCP-507 is allowed free roam of the facility, obviously barring anything that would breach security or safety protocols. Anytime SCP-507 leaves its private quarters, it must be accompanied by an agent, mostly at this point, to make sure that it does not shift without the facility's knowledge. SCP-507 should not be physically touched if there have been more than 2 weeks since its last shift. The risks inherent in disobeying this protocol make the action its own punishment, should the issue of disciplinary measures ever come up. When SCP-507 undergoes a shift, faculty will be informed to keep an eye out for its eventual reappearance. It also has a tracking device implanted into it, and a daily signal check should verify whether or not SCP-507 has returned from its trip. If it reappears in or nearby the facility, SCP-507 will return to its quarters on its own. Otherwise, a retrieval team of 3 plainclothes agents may be sent to provide transportation back. Upon successful return, SCP-507 can be the subject of various physical tests up until 2 weeks after each shift. It is worth noting that SCP-507 is allowed a computer with an internet connection by a proxy which strictly limits what information can be uploaded and to where in its room, and may petition to use or mate with or act as a test subject for safe or Euclid SCPs that do not affect mental functions negatively or carry an infectious trait. This is a result of SCP-507's persistently clean record, and the implication that if SCP-507 was ever going to be a security leak, it would have used its faux teleportation powers to do so already. It is also worth considering that SCP-507 is actually below average in most physical traits, and that, even in the worst case scenarios, any SCP agent should be more than capable of carrying out a termination order. Description: SCP-507 is a Caucasian male with blonde hair and green eyes. sporting no other outstanding characteristics besides being somewhat overweight and speaking in a vague accent of disputable origin. Although SCP-507 has an already established name due to its unremarkable upbringing, it seems to find entertainment in forcing those it meets to give it a nickname in lieu of divulging this information. Thus, SCP-507 will now respond to the names Tommy, Steve, Bruto, Guy, Houdini, and Grabnock the Destroyer.
Grabnock the Destroyer.
SCP-507 was originally recovered from the asylum when standard surveillance equipment following repeated successful escape attempts brought its abilities to light. All records of this incident were confiscated, and SCP-507 was taken into custody under the pretense of moving it to a more secure facility. The original theory was that SCP-507 possessed some form of teleportation ability, as it would suddenly disappear and eventually reappear in a different location. Subsequent interviews with the subject did verify that its ability could be used in such a manner, but that it was merely a side effect for its main affliction. SCP-507 holds that during its periods of disappearance, it is actually displaced into a random alternate reality. The landscape generally stays the same, but the inhabitants and climate of the parallel world often do not. SCP-507 also insists that it has no control over the time and duration of these shifts. This has been more or less confirmed by the subject being known to displace at inconvenient times, such as mid-sentence, while sleeping, or even while using on-site public facilities. If SCP-507 moves about in the alternate world, the eventual shift back will then place it at the corresponding area in our reality. A sample list of SCP-507's descriptions of alternate realities can be found in Document 507-0. Mentally, SCP-507 shows no large deviations from the psychological profile for a normal person. It has confessed to have always had a great interest in the paranormal.
According to the census, you can complete the census online in no time at all.
Normal and mythological, which has directly led to its eventual permission to interact with relatively harmless SCPs. SCP-507 especially enjoys meeting with other sentient SCPs, once going so far as to request a small vacation to visit SCP-82. The request was eventually granted after persistent pleading from SCP-507, and the meeting was thankfully uneventful. Document 507-0. A sample list of SCP-507's supposed extradimensional travels, along with any demands made by it after returning. Subject arrived in complete darkness, leading it to assume that the current location was indoors or subterranean. After fumbling about for a possible way out, subject heard a sound akin to muted breathing nearby. Subject then decided to curl up in the nearest corner and wait it out, instead of risking a blind confrontation with an unknown creature. Request: a standard flashlight, which it now always carries on its person.
I think I need to make these
Subject
better.
appeared in a replica of the facility, although apparently fallen into disuse. Further exploration led to the discovery of various corpses strewn about the area, all heavily decayed and covered in an odd type of mold. Upon noting that the corpses seemed to rhythmically expand and contract as if still breathing, subject attempted to leave the facility. This idea was quickly discarded when it opened an exit and found that the outside world was apparently coated with the same odd growth. Request: heavy doses of voriconazole and a fungal expert to help ascertain the nature of the mold. No exact match of the described mold was found, but it was noted to share many attributes with certain types of cordyceps fungi. See Addendum 507-2. Upon reappearing, subject was reported to mutter, "So many spiders." Subject refused to elaborate. Request: a handheld firearm of any type. Request was granted under the stipulation that said firearm is specifically built to only use rubber bullets. Subject once again appeared in a pitch-black location with breathing nearby. Upon turning on its flashlight, Subject was surprised by a man wearing a black business suit and sunglasses with an impossibly wide smile. Said smiling man was apparently leading toward SCP-507 when it turned on the light, the end result being that their faces were almost touching. Smiling man then remarked, "Back so soon?" before subject switched the light off again, discharged all rounds in its firearm at the general vicinity of the man, and once more curled up into the nearest corner until shifted back into our reality. Request: none. Those with level 2 security clearance may read a full list by accessing document 507-3B. Forward. Below is an archive of all documented shifts undergone by SCP-507. Each of these entries are presented with their contents in the following order. Dimensional label, created upon discovery of a new reality for ease of later reference. Retrieval, used for the documentation of any complications or anomalies in the recovery of SCP-507 post-shift. Description of reality, and description of any after effects caused by visiting said reality. And finally, request, listings of any special requests made by 507 upon return, or for noting any souvenirs retrieved from the ship. 1B7,
Yeah, I think that looks
55E,
better.
728. Retrieval, uneventful. Subject arrived in a desert environment and wandered around for roughly an hour before encountering another human. Said human was wearing a tanned leather overcoat and was described as completely unshaven. Said man was extremely surprised to find the subject and demanded that he be followed in order to lead it back to food and shelter. Subject originally began to follow the man, but intentionally lost contact with him upon noticing that his leather coat contained no seams or stitching. Request: none. 9E2 66V 7HG 5. Retrieval uneventful. Subject arrived in a forest habitat, with no signs of previous or current industrialization. No further anomalies were perceptible until the subject grew hungry, at which point it discovered that harvesting or eating plant life would cause them to emit telepathic screams. Subject abstained from eating for the first day because of this, but became hungry enough on the second day onward to consume the flora in spite of the screams. Testing has shown no biological changes in the subject from this, but subject repeatedly affirms that it felt horrible for doing so. Request: none specifically, but subject adopted a gelatin and pudding-based diet for 2.5 weeks after returning from this ship. J75 R63 3TF. Retrieval
Pudding diet.
uneventful.
Jello
Subject arrived
pudding
in a
diet.
dimension with flipped genders. No notable differences beside this were discovered, although subject found issue with the fact that its female counterpart looks pretty much the same as the standard version. Request: none. Dimensional label invalid. Retrieval. Via tracking device, plainclothes agents found subject sitting in an alleyway at... Subject was largely unresponsive upon retrieval, and remained so until the standard questioning phase. When asked where it went this shift, subject answered, "Nowhere. I think I missed it this time." Subject experienced minor motor skill impairment and decreased activity levels for roughly a month after this shift. Request: a nightlight and wristwatch which makes an audible tick as the second hand moves. Both were approved. J7Q 53Y 8ST. Retrieval. Subject was found in its quarters, sprawled on the floor, attempting to gnaw through the sleeves of a straitjacket it was wearing. The jacket, leg restraints, and loss of motor skills still present from the last shift led to the subject being unable to stand up or open the door to find assistance. Subject shifted while sleeping and awoke restrained and lying in a hospital-grade bed. A nurse informed the subject that he was still a patient at the asylum and was currently suffering from advanced stages of dementia. Subject was then sedated and spent the rest of this shift alternating between semi-consciousness and total unconsciousness. Request: disregarding, get this thing off me, none.
Get this fucking thing off me.
9266V,
Damn it.
7HG5, 2. Retrieval. Subject found in its quarters, balled up, with its hands over its ears. Subject once again arrived in the forest habitat from 9266V, 7HG5. The flora seemed to have remembered subject's last visit, though they reacted by screaming for its entire 4-day shift. Request. A hug. Approved. And they say the Foundation is evil. 6K3, 21B, I0S. BN2, AL6, CTE. Retrieval, uneventful. Subject arrived in a derelict metropolitan area. Subject was unable to locate any other humans, but noted an overabundance of cats in every area it visited. Said felines seemed no different from normal house cats though, and subject spent most of this shift petting any who came near. During the standard examination procedures after retrieval, trace amounts of a Toxoplasma gondii variant were discovered on the subject's clothing, as well as larger amounts on its shoes. Further testing showed that the subject had not yet been infected with the toxoplasmosis variant, most likely attributed to the short time frame of this shift not allowing the subject to grow hungry and seek out food. All clothing and belongings that were on the subject's person during this shift were incinerated, and the subject forced to undergo special decontamination procedures in order to prevent any possibility of contagion. Request. A pair of rubber gloves. Denied, on the basis that hand protection would not have protected subject from infection in any way. 125-28P OS4 3. Retrieval. Via tracking device, subject was attempting to return on its own, but was making less progress than usual due to the discomfort of doing so. Subject once again arrived in a pitch-black area with muted breathing nearby. Subject decided to seek an exit this time via blind wandering. Subject eventually found itself at the mouth of a corridor with what appeared to be a light source at the end. Subject began to run towards the light upon noticing this. As it grew closer, the light suddenly grew in intensity and the subject was exposed to searing pain. Subject passed out at this point and only awoke after it had shifted back. Examination upon retrieval revealed that the subject's epidermis had been clearly stripped down to the stratum granulosum in all areas open to sunlight, and down to the stratum lucidum in all areas covered by clothing. Request. None, but subject reappeared wearing a pair of large, heavily tinted sunglasses. Subject did not notice that it was wearing these until they were pointed out, and supposed that they were probably why its eyes didn't undergo the same process as its skin. 7F2 WA3 193. Retrieval, uneventful. Subject arrived in an urban area with no major changes as far as it could tell. Subject used the public computers of a library to search for differences between this dimension and ours, eventually finding that Abraham Lincoln was assassinated by his vice president in order to claim his position. This ultimately led to the presidency becoming a tribe leader-like position, where the current holder is legally allowed to be challenged and overthrown by other suitable candidates. Subject noted with great surprise that this change did not do much to alter the times that most major presidents took and held in office. Many of the minor and/or detrimental presidencies tended to end via bullet wounds, often in unlikely locales or from improbable angles, which deterred most from attempting coups at all. Request, none.
Okay.
WS6 ECU 83D. Retrieval, uneventful. Subject arrived at the mouth of the cave, surrounded by almost unbearable heat. Subject walked outside the cave for further investigation to find that the area around it was a baked wasteland. Most of the heat appeared to emanate from two suns in the sky. The subject could not decide whether they were extremely large or extremely close to the planet. Upon further examination, the suns blinked and turned away, taking the heat with them. Subject spent the rest of this shift as far back in the cave as possible. Request, none. Q56 DRU 865. Retrieval, Subject found in the cafeteria, masticating on what appeared to be... Upon containment, subject uttered the words, "More, more, more," before losing consciousness. Subject regained consciousness 2 hours later, expressing a strong desire for pudding. When questioned, subject claimed to see the biggest mound of pudding ever. When questioned as to why it was masticating upon arrival, subject claimed to be eating a glob of pudding at the time. Subject reported seeing rolling around the hallways. Hallucinations passed within 24 hours. Request: pudding. Request granted. F-24 9S6 33C.
I don't know. I like pudding, but I don't know about that.
Subject found in service tunnel 6R3BK without original equipment. Subject was wearing a simple uniform with a similar design to the current Foundation D-Class uniform. Subject shifted while dining in the cafeteria. Destination dimension had an analog to the Foundation with a facility in the same location, although internal layout had significant differences. Security responded to subject as an intruder and detained it immediately. During this process, the subject was imprisoned and stripped of all equipment, including tracking device. For the remainder of the shift, subject underwent repeated questioning. The Foundation analog refused to accept subject's explanation of dimension hopping. Information gleaned from post-shift debriefing indicates that F-24 9S633C has a Foundation analog in the Society for Containment of the Paranormal. This analog has a strong British influence and is opposed by the Covert Occult Group and the Church of the Mending God. Further details remain unclear, as the Society refused to answer the subject's questions and only slipped details by assuming it knew them already. Request: replacement equipment. Request granted. 4GT F1Q H17. Retrieval. Subject was found by the cafeteria kitchen staff of site, drenched, covered in mud, and suffering from severe hypothermia. Subject arrived in what appeared to be a large field during a rainstorm. Subject attempted to find shelter from the rain, but found none, remaining in the rain for the entire shift. After an unknown length of time, the subject reported seeing entities in the distance. Although the heavy rain obscured the subject from obtaining a detailed report of their appearances, the subject described them as being vaguely humanoid in shape. The entities began to slowly move towards the subject from all directions. Near the end of the shift, the subject reported hearing labored breathing from the nearest entities. Request: a set of warm clothing. Approved. 2AW9U2 E5T. Retrieval: uneventful. Subject arrived in midair, falling from an outdoor environment into a subterranean body of water at the bottom of a large cavern. Though admittedly experiencing a strong surge of adrenaline from this event, subject reported swimming a long way before reaching land. Subsequent observation revealed a giant hole in the ceiling of the cavern, through which subject had apparently fallen. Also reported were archways to other large caverns, most with shafts of sunlight visible, indicating other surface collapses. Regular vertical grooves in the walls indicate possible excavation. Despite the cavern's immense size, no other sign of life was observed. Before returning, subject realized that the possibility of shifting back to our reality so far underground might cause it to be displaced in solid rock, and spent its remaining time frantically searching for a way back to the surface. When subject succeeded, it discovered that the sinkholes were much more widespread than what had been visible from below ground. Request: driving lessons. Denied. 2UU 519
Aw, you
Q3D.
couldn't give the guy some driving
Retrieval.
lessons? That sucks.
Upon seeing Foundation personnel, subject approached them and requested to be recontained, sharing knowledge of SCPs that were of level 3 clearance. The length of time the subject was absent from our reality was notable, being roughly 3 months in length. However, during this time, it made several notable discoveries, including several SCPs uncontained by our reality's SCP Foundation, but contained by Universe 2UU 519 Q3D's equivalent. These SCPs have now been contained. Through this 3-month time frame, the subject managed to become a member of 2UU-519-Q3D's SCP Foundation equivalent, working its way up the ranks far faster than would have been anticipated, assuming it had been made a member of Foundation personnel on the same day. At the time of its return, he was apparently in the field, working to contain 2UU-519-Q3D's equivalent of SCP. Curiously, our Foundation had sent out a task force for precisely the same reason on the same day. Further links between Universe 2UU-519-Q3D and our reality are being investigated. Request: to be made a member of Site personnel. Denied.
That sucks. Come on, let the guy be a
3JT,
member.
3MD, DIG. Retrieval. Subject retrieved via implanted tracker. Medevac required to site. Subject was immobile upon retrieval due to greatly increased body mass, measured kilograms. Lead research approved emergency use of SCP-394 to keep it alive in order to obtain a report. Upon recovery, subject reported being surrounded by really big creatures resembling. They quickly trapped him in a transparent container. It was then transported an unknown distance to a shiny surface, whereupon the creatures began to observe him. After approximately 1 day, tubes were inserted into unknown fluid, which was not found upon examination. Subject reported that the tubes were removed shortly before the shift and had observed approaching it, presumably for the purpose of extraction. Request: services of a personal trainer. Dr. has agreed to let the subject borrow her workout tapes. Subject now displays a strong aversion to pudding. 9J3Y6X Retrieval. The subject was found hanging from its ankles in a tree on site. Subject was partially encased in insulated, reflective titanium armor upon retrieval. The subject described the world it had arrived in as extra shiny, and stated that it was apprehended by law enforcement officers upon retrieval. After being apprehended, the subject was transported to a nearby manufacturing facility and placed upside down on an assembly line where a series of metal sheets were shaped and cut to fit its body. It briefly had time to ask what was going on and was informed that the radiation from the sun was extremely dangerous and titanium reflective suits were required by law to prevent thermal radiation damage to any person or structure. Request: sunscreen and eye exam. Granted. 52J079-3GH Retrieval. Via tracking device, subject was found inside a padlocked metal shed behind an abandoned house on the outskirts of. Subject arrived in a small room housing several dried corpses. Besides said corpses, the room was mostly bare. The only things subject noted were a single paneless window and a light fixture on the ceiling which occasionally flickered. Subject attempted to rise to his feet, but had difficulty doing so due to repeated and unpredictable surges of motion. Subject eventually made its way to the window, at which point it discovered that its room was actually a container suspended in mid-air by a large chain. Subject watched as similar containers passed by him, and as it passed by others, via a complex web of rails above it which the chains were attached to. Subject could see nothing besides this but darkness in all directions. Subject then tried to wait out its time in this dimension by falling asleep, but found it difficult due to a newly discovered quality of the corpses. During moments of darkness caused by flickering, the corpses rearranged themselves into poses which would be logical for living people during that particular moment.
Damn,
If
that
the subject was looking out the window, the corpses would be crowded around him in an attempt to get a better view. If the subject was sitting, they would also be seated in a pattern to form a circle. If the subject attempted to reach the light fixture, they would act as a support or seem to be in the process of pushing him upwards, etc. Request: none. The area which the subject exited, though, has been cordoned off and is currently under surveillance. If no evidence of Foundation-worthy phenomena has been experienced by an anonymous tip will be sent to local law enforcement agencies so that they can discover the crime scene and take appropriate investigative actions on their own. YTF 5N2Q00 Retrieval, uneventful. Subject arrived in a crowded casino-like area. Subject noted that the only type of machine available was something similar to slots, but they apparently required no money to play and gave out nothing upon a win. Upon actually sitting down in front of one and trying it, the subject discovered that the machine dispensed a small slip of paper with writing on it upon every pull of the lever and spin of the symbols it displayed. Subject could discern no real pattern to what symbol would produce what type of note, but wrote down a list of its attempts and what it received from each just in case. Jewel Crescent Claw. If given a slice of death, could you tell how large it was? Hammer Crescent Crescent. A poor base leads to rushed patch jobs. Crescent Hammer Jewel. Deja vu. Claw Circle Hammer. There are things worse than death. For one, not dying. Crescent Hammer Crescent. There will always be someone to look after you. Crescent Jewel Crescent. They're not that jolly, it's just stuck that way. Hammer Crescent Hammer. There will always be something to look after. Claw Claw Claw. The future's looking bright. Request, none. FN305P KHC. Retrieval, uneventful. Subject appeared in a white corridor, with steel doors lining both walls. Each door had a keypad, a small speaker system, and a clipboard containing forms written in undecipherable characters. As the subject approached one door to examine said clipboard, the door's attached speaker turned on and began to address it. Subject was informed that the voice belonged to the person locked behind that specific door, and that he was wrongfully imprisoned, then left to die. The prisoner then pleaded with the subject to release him from his cell. Subject jokingly replied that he would free the prisoner if he promised not to stab the subject upon release. There was roughly a 7-second pause before the prisoner asked what stabbing was. After a moment of deliberation, the subject defined stabbing as the creation of a new orifice through the use of a pointed object. Another pause followed. The prisoner eventually affirmed that he could not stab the subject because all of his objects were very blunt. Subject naturally did not open that door or any of the others. Request, none. I-52-37G-78M. Retrieval. Via tracking device, subject was in a holding cell of a police station under charges of public indecency. Extraction was successfully made with no complications. Subject arrived in an area apparently undergoing a large snowstorm. Subject attempted to find shelter, but could not find its way in the storm, and had almost completely succumbed to exposure by the time it was located and pulled into a cave by a man covered in protective furs. The man helped the subject out of its soaked clothing, although he did not have an extra set of garments. He led the subject to an underground hot spring his cave was connected to. When the man was sure that the subject was regaining its strength, he removed his furs and entered the spring as well. Subject was extremely surprised to discover that the man was a second SCP-507. Subject noticed no obvious physical differences between itself and the double, although the alternate 507 had a pattern of tribal scarring across his torso, as well as the bases of some of his limbs. Subject and the double remained in the cave and conversed with each other until the subject's shift ended. Request. Subject drew a replica of the alternate 507 scars from memory and asked for any information on possible cultural or symbolic meaning behind the patterns. None were found, but Foundation researchers noted that the lines were congruent with incision marks which would have been made during a standard
Okay, it's taking shape. It's taking shape.
S4351U P09.
Let's see. Now,
Retrieval.
I believe we're
By
going to
a
have to
tracking
go
device.
and make
Subject
actually
recovered in a
probably
cornfield
the sides of it a lot
with
taller.
unidentified brown liquid splattered on its cheek. A human heart with the words "I need you" written in the same liquid was discovered in the subject's hand.
Well, first and foremost,
Subject
let's
claimed that said
start putting
object was not
the
in its
other
possession
walls.
during the shift and does not know how it came into its possession. Researchers are attempting to identify the liquid. Subject arrived in pitch black darkness. with the sound of crying nearby. Upon activating its flashlight, the subject discovered the smiling man from previous shifts leaning towards him. Brown liquid leaked from around its sunglasses. Smiling man pushed its face closer to the subject's and uttered the phrase, "Why did you do this?" Smiling man then wiped off a portion of the brown liquid from its eyes with its hand and began caressing subject's cheek with it.
Damn,
Subject
that would be
forcefully
creepy
pushed
as
Smiling Man
fuck.
away. Subject observed that the Smiling Man's business suit contained several holes, with brown liquid trailing down from them. Subject drew its firearm and pulled the trigger. However, for unknown reasons, the pistol did not fire. Smiling Man began slowly walking towards the subject.
And I'll go ahead and
Subject
actually
ran
put
for
a
approximately
link
10
to
minutes
the
and
Volgun's
spent the
channel
rest
in
of
the
the shift
description.
huddled in the corner.
I mean, he's definitely my
Request,
favorite when
a
it
more
comes
reliable
to
pistol.
readers of
Denied,
SCP articles.
as the cause of error is unknown. 9E2 66V
So I think
7HG5
next-
3. Retrieval via tracking device. Subject was discovered 7 kilometers northeast of the facility. Subject shifted while reading in its quarters. Subject found itself returned to the forest habitat containing telepathic trees. The trees remained silent upon its entry to the environment. The subject admitted that despite its previous experiences within the environment, it was curious about the absence of any human habitation. The subject propelled itself to the highest ground it could find in order to see over the tree canopy. The subject found a clearing on top of a hill.
How am I gonna
Subject
do
reported
this?
seeing a huge semi-translucent blue dome covering the entire forest. The tree canopy extended out to the edge of the dome with foliage so thick that looking up and through it was unfeasible. Subject reported itself to see the dome slightly off-center, suggesting it was not underneath the direct middle. Request: none. 5Z4 75T 7YB. Retrieval. Subject was found prone and unresponsive in its quarters. Subject was bleeding significantly. Several deep gashes were found in the left side of the subject, just under the armpit. The claw marks extended to the bottom of the rib cage. Subject received traditional first aid and was committed to the on-site infirmary. The subject woke up
How are we
on a
gonna do
snow-covered
this?
plain. Subject did not have its backpack on hand at the time of the shift, having been asleep. All that went with it was its bed sheets and pajamas. Subject reports having seen a TV show of how to survive in a cold environment before the shift. It attempted to build a large crude snow cave using its hands when it was interrupted by a large white bear. This is the extent of its recollection. Request: a proper weapon. Granted. Losing subject to a non-anomalous polar bear would be a waste of Foundation resources and an embarrassment. Subject shall receive a knife, sheath, and belt, and is required to
I'll
keep
bring
these items
this
on its
out
person
by
at all
one
times.
more. I think that would probably look
3G8
better.
14H 9UX. Retrieval. Recontained in the kitchen, missing left hand and using expletives in an uncontrolled fashion. The subject was returned to the infirmary. The subject transitioned into a dimension very similar to our own at first glance. The subject was apprehended by Foundation personnel in the infirmary and questioned about his small canines. The subject admitted to not knowing what that meant, but quickly worked it out after his interviewer opened his mouth and pointed to a large set of fangs located on either side of its incisors. The interview also commented on the subject's roundish body shape, which was considered unusual and fascinating in this dimension. Despite these differences, the subject described the creatures who interviewed it as kind. They proceeded to bring the subject a large amount of food. The subject noted a distinct lack of anything green in the meal offered to him. When later told to elaborate by Foundation personnel, he stated it was all meat. After eating the meal, 2 of the creatures containing the subject in their equivalent of the infirmary escorted him into a small room nearby containing a locket hanging on the opposite wall. They told the subject to remove its clothes and stand in front of the locket. After the subject had done as ordered, they opened the locket and exposed it to a green orb for approximately 8 minutes. The subject noted the lack of any scar tissue on his left side and a strong feeling of general well-being. The next day, a creature came to him and asked for a small portion of his skin and musculature in order to study genetic differences. To this, the subject responded with, "Only if you provide me with another delicious meal." The creature was visibly excited by this outcome. A small biopsy was conducted on the subject's upper right thigh. The subject described this experience as painful but totally worth it. A huge amount of unspecified meat was delivered to the subject upon completion of the biopsy. The subject was then released to explore the facility. For the next month and a
How am I
half,
gonna do
the
this?
creatures continued to supply the subject
Maybe.
with mounds of meat and engage it in amiable conversation. The subject acquired 14 kilograms of fat during this time. On April 16, 2015, the subject was escorted to the kitchen equivalent. It was then put on a chopping block and its left hand was removed. Request: a replacement hand. Granted. 8A891T710. Retrieval: uneventful. Subject arrived in a large opaque dome filled with plants without sign of human habitation. Subject stated that walking was difficult and uncomfortable. Upon further investigation, the subject found a window displaying what was described as pitch black with Earth on the horizon. Several minutes later, a tall humanoid encountered the subject, inquiring about his comparative
Ran out of carbon.
short stature. Subject replied, asking where he was. The humanoid stated that they were in Base 12, Oxygen and Vegetable Wing. Subject asked what Earth was doing in the sky. Humanoid appeared puzzled and responded, "That's the moon," gesturing to Earth. A short argument ensued, and the humanoid departed. Subject noted that after the Earth set, a rocky gray landscape became visible, becoming identifiable as the lunar surface after an hour or so. Subject attempted to explore more of his surroundings, but shifted back
it's
to our
off-center
reality
right
after
here.
setting out.
I'm gonna have to
Request:
rework
one
this right
camera.
here.
Subject stated the view was breathtaking. Denied. 7J017535X. Retrieval: subject was recontained on the roof of the facility after having fallen approximately 5 meters. Subject shifted while attempting to fall asleep. Subject arrived in a large body of water, believed to be fresh water by the description of its taste. Subject swam upward an estimated 35 meters before reaching the surface of the water and beginning to tread. Subject noted several dark shapes moving in the water beneath it and bright lights in the distance, but it did not attempt to approach either. Subject reportedly found breathing extremely difficult. Subsequent physical tests indicated that the subject had ingested substantial amounts of methane during the shift. Request: a tank of breathing gas as part of its equipment. Approved. 99P UT1 24J. Retrieval: subject was found in the location which it had left, curled up and crying violently. Subject screamed, "Why did I have to go?" when an attempt was made to interact with it, and suffered from severe depression for several days thereafter. Agents described a beautiful smell coming from it. Subject landed in a place it could only describe as impossibly beautiful. Subject stated that it was like the best part of every place all put together, and that the beauty was so overwhelming that the subject had no desire to move. When it began to become thirsty and hungry, plants apparently extended vines and shot liquid into its mouth, which it described as the best anything I have ever drunk ever.
So
Sweet and
he had
rich
a
and everything all at once.
plant cum shot right in
After
his
roughly
mouth. That's
one
nice.
day, subject, having never looked at his watch during this time, had no clear knowledge of the duration. A humanoid female, subject's age, unexpectedly encountered subject as she walked over a hill. Subject claimed that they had a long conversation despite not speaking the same language, and was unable to explain how this was possible or the form of their communication had taken. Subject claimed that he understood her answers to his questions and about her and their location, but was unable to articulate them. Subject described her with, "I know I'm sounding repetitive here, but she was the most amazing person I have ever met." With some reluctance, subject stated that they had been about to kiss when the shift ended. Subject then had to be prevented from committing suicide. Tests after successful psychiatric treatment indicated subject was considerably more physically fit and had gained roughly 8 IQ points, despite having done no significant exercise during the shift. Request: various foods, beverages, and pictures of women widely regarded as very physically attractive. The subject considered all granted requests unsatisfactory, making statements such as, "It's not the same," and "No, not like that." Subject then requested a way to stay in the universe permanently after having arrived there, and was reminded that it was impossible. 6A593W132. Retrieval: subject returned malnourished and suffering from the effects of an unknown toxic substance, from which it soon recovered. Later analysis showed the substance to be a venom containing a high level of silicon. A small silicon-based crystalline creature was hanging from the subject's finger when the subject returned. This specimen subsequently died of unknown causes, possibly starvation. Subject shifted to a dimension which primarily contained crystals of varying sizes and hues. The sun was described by the subject as smaller and bluer than ours. The ground was covered in sand and also various dull colors. The subject noted that many of the larger crystals were moving slowly and appeared to be alive. It also saw smaller creatures which scuttled around rapidly and seemed to be composed of crystal. The subject spent some time searching for water, which it found. It noted that there seemed to be considerably more of the smaller crystalline animals near the water. Shortly before the subject returned, it was attacked by one of the small creatures. The subject described both the larger and the smaller creatures as both looking and behaving similarly to crustaceans. Request: food and water that doesn't taste like sand. Granted. 7XJ HG577B. Retrieval: subject appeared in its quarters, highly agitated. D3762 and the handcuffs binding the two together were reported missing. Subject before the shift was handcuffed to D3762, a convicted serial killer. Subject was instructed to terminate D3762 if either of them were placed in mortal danger. 507 shifted to a dimension where a second ice age was occurring on Earth. Immediately after landing, D3762 and the subject were captured by agents of a post-apocalyptic SCP Foundation. The former was immediately recognized as D-Class and was swiftly terminated by an individual claiming to be Agent. 507 was placed in a cell in the lower levels of a facility called Site. Subject recalls that from the interrogation, the agents believed that it was a junior researcher attempting to help D3762 escape from the Foundation. During the interrogation, the subject shifted back into our dimension. Request: replacement gear. Granted. T34DE204F. Retrieval: subject was found in Sector, a highly restricted area. Subject was swiftly removed. Subject shifted to a dimension with a world covered in water. Subject then equipped its scuba gear and decided to see what was below the water. Subject descended for approximately 3 minutes and believed that it traveled 50 meters down before seeing the ocean floor. The floor was covered with abandoned buildings and rubble, corroded and covered with aqueous plant life. Several skeletons could be seen. Subject had searched the underwater city for 3 minutes when the subject spotted 3 black fish-like creatures moving towards it at an estimated speed of 10 meters per second. Subject drew his knife and firearm before shifting back into our dimension. Request: a pair of waterproof binoculars. Approved. A60D9975Q. Retrieval: subject returned to the site wearing an elaborate costume made of silks, wool, and several unidentified mammals. The subject appeared in an empty alleyway of a futuristic city inhabited by a large variety of unknown humanoid entities. When subject encountered said entities, they appeared startled at its presence and began vocalizing loudly and seemed to become agitated. Eventually, the equivalent of the local authorities took the subject into custody and were able to communicate with it. When questioned about how he arrived there, subject stated it had amnesia and could not recall the last several years. Subject then questioned the origin of the various beings and the reason for their presence on Earth. Said authorities explained to the subject that after Earth had suffered a CK-class end-of-the-world scenario, based on the description given, it is hypothesized that the event was caused by SCP. The Earth, left with a greatly reduced human population, was subsequently colonized by various extraterrestrial races. The few remaining humans on the planet mostly inhabited isolated areas away from the alien cities. These authorities then offered to take the subject to the nearest of these locations, but subject refused, insisting that it stay among the extraterrestrials. It appears the subject's status as one of the few remaining humans comfortable with the presence of the aliens, combined with a large number of facts fabricated about life on Earth prior to the CK-class scenario, allowed the subject to gain a high social profile as part of the alien society, becoming something of a celebrity during the 2 weeks it spent in shift. Request: a camera to better record and document events and sites experienced during the shifts. Approved. Z73 3DD 89E. Retrieval: subject was found in the basement of a house. Subject arrived in an airship of some sort, flying across what appeared to be a mountainous region. Subject reported meeting several humanoids it described as dwarfs and elves, similar to those found in typical high fantasy literature. These beings were supposedly mercenaries investigating an anomaly in their world, described as a dragon having fallen from the sky. Subject requested to join them in their mission, getting excited to partake in an apparently fantastical adventure. After landing at the site of the mission, subject was reluctantly convinced to stay on the airship, as the mission would likely be dangerous. Eventually getting impatient, subject investigated the cave in which the supposed dragon hid on its own, managing to take a picture of a massive reptilian creature with metallic scales and wings with its camera just as it shifted back. The picture is described by Foundation staff as sick as fuck. Subject repeatedly affirmed that a
Sick
child
as
wearing a
fuck.
large pointed hat appeared just before the shift and grabbed its leg. Request: a Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition player's handbook. Granted. CZE 582 7DG. Retrieval uneventful. Subject appeared in the bedroom of a cute suburban-looking house and was greeted by several people of varying age and race. They welcomed him to their home and showed him around the building. Subject noted an abundance of windows in the building. Upon looking outside, noticed that the house was encased in a large glass dome and was being viewed by several cameras. The residents explained that they were part of a zoo-like enclosure. Subject was not distressed, as he knew he would eventually return to the Foundation. Subject spent the next several days meeting the residents and relaxing while waiting to return. Request: none. DRK 038 891. Retrieval: SCP-507 was found in Dr. King's office. Subject appeared in what seemed to be an endless forest of apple trees. It was inhabited by a race of humanoids, all of whom appeared identical to Dr. King. The entities seemed to recognize SCP-507 and gave him a message to pass on to Dr. King. Come home, lost child. We have sent you the signs countless times, yet you still do not come. Do you not remember the holy orchard of your birth? The wind through the trees, the crisp delight of her holy fruit? Please come home.
Okay, so
We miss you.
531.
Request: to pass message on to Dr. King. Denied for the safety of SCP-507. SCP-LD-9 431. Retrieval uneventful. Subject appeared in a highly furnished version of its own containment chamber. After leaving the chamber, it is discovered that the facility was inverted from the main reality in the sense that all of the offices were replaced with containment chambers and vice versa. Further inquiry revealed that Foundation staff were being contained due to their ability to create dangerous experiments. The primary containment staff consisted of more docile versions of the baseline reality's humanoids in containment. Notably, less hostility did not make their lack of containment any safer, causing the facility to be filled with biological, mimetic, and other hazards. it is unknown how a K-class scenario has not occurred despite the apparent lack of containment. D-class and non-research staff were unchanged. Request heightened psychological evaluations on staff. I swear you guys are telling us something about 507. It didn't bring anything dangerous back somehow and never does. Not to mention, it wasn't a mental institution and aspires to be a researcher. Agent McDaniels. Addendum 507-3B00. Due to a particularly trying encounter, several documents in the archives have been altered, corrupted, or technically never existed. Document 507-3B appears to have been affected by this, and is currently being rebuilt using backup files, references, and respectively. Subject matter may occasionally increase, decrease, or undergo modifications in light of this. Doctor. Those with Level 2 507 security clearance should also see Interview 507G for evidence of a particularly noteworthy shift. And this is Interview 507G. Interviewed SCP-507 and SCP-507. Interviewer, Dr. Forward. During a daily signal check for SCP-507, two independent verifications were returned. The following investigation led to the discovery of identical SCP-507 duplicates in its assigned quarters. Both apparently made their way to the room by themselves, and had spent less than half an hour conversing with each other upon meeting. The following interview took place between them and the first informed employee to reach their location. Playing log, now.
Hey Doug, welcome to the party. I'm afraid you're going to have to explain this to me. There's apparently one more version of me with this problem. Should have seen this coming, honestly. There are so many ways an alternate reality could differ without affecting my personal life, you know? So, which one of you is the visitor? Is something wrong? We've actually been talking about this for a bit. Now, you guys have been real nice to us.
More than we deserve, really.
But we also know that this could be a rather enticing opportunity for your research department. It'd probably be best if you didn't know which one of us
I
was
think
temporary.
that looks good for the body.
I don't know what kind of stories you two have been sharing, but our job is to secure and protect the likes of you. Perhaps this other reality has a less benign code of conduct.
And perhaps I can shoot fireballs from my mouth.
We don't mean to be hurtful, but this place isn't the best source of human compassion. I'm sure that there's at least one person on staff who would love breaking the open in an attempt to find out how all this freaky stuff works. If it wasn't for the fact that you couldn't keep studying me after.
So do you have to put it like that? I have enough things to keep me awake at night.
Good God, I know. Once there was this guy with a huge ass smile.
I met him too.
Nearly soiled myself.
I wish I was that lucky.
You know, this could be interpreted as a security breach.
Who's the doppelganger gonna report to? Alternate SCP? I'm fairly sure that there's a better chance of a meteor striking this place than successful cross-dimensional sabotage.
I've actually came across at least 3 dimensions where something fell from.
You're not helping.
I rarely do.
Anyway,
Well, now that our visitor is left, I have a question. Alright? Did you two figure out the difference between your realities? Actually, I think I did. In his world, Abraham Lincoln was killed while sleeping by his vice president, instead of by General Lee. In this reality, Booth assassinated Lincoln. Oh bugger.
Closing statement. Subsequent testing revealed that
I think
SCP-507's
that's
abilities
good for the
have no
body.
biological basing, and that severed pieces will still
make the
shift
floors,
along
walls,
with the main
all
body.
that type of stuff.
The SCP-507 of this reality reappeared 3 days later and has not been informed of this incident. Addendum 507-0. Agent went missing on at the same time as SCP-507. A full-scale search was launched to find either of them, only for SCP-507 to appear a week later. When questioned, it said that it was holding onto its shoulder when it shifted, leading to both of them to appear in an alternate dimension where, during the ensuing chaos, SCP-507 lost contact with him and could not relocate him before it shifted back to standard reality. A new protocol has been placed in light of this. No one is to come into contact with SCP-507 after 2 weeks following a displacement. Reevaluation of previous incidents has shown that there have always been at least 2 weeks between each,
I've gotta start
so this
making
time
myself
frame
something to
will be
eat.
the only
Starting to
safe
get a little
time to
hungry.
touch SCP-507 until further notice. Addendum 507-1. I don't care how much he grumbles about it, SCP-507 is not to be cleared for challenging SCP-76-2 to 50 rounds of tic-tac-toe. Just no. Dr. Addendum 507-2. Fungus encountered by SCP-507 seems similar to that resulting from experimentation with SCP-407. I wonder if there's a dimension out there that I'm the king and everyone appreciates me. Anyway, I think that about does it for today, don't you? Thank you all for listening, if indeed you still are, and you are all dismissed.
Let's get, I guess, the rest of these
Goodbye.
walls set up. Okay.
I would like to give a special thank you
Okay, I'm gonna
to
have to make
researcher
myself at
Brandon
least a
Connell,
way out. Okay.
Burlington the Cat, Slump God, Justin Day,
Alright, yeah.
Pierce
so we got
M. Hamlin,
that. I'm gonna have to make the legs,
Crew,
but I'm not exactly sure how
Beware
I'm going to make
600,
them. I may make them
Bryson
actually out
Daly,
of decoration because
my
lobster
archive
legs
creator
are
Nick,
just so thin.
Tyver Bull,
And then the arms. I'm
Cody
gonna
Tench,
figure out how I'm gonna
Cheese
do
Whip,
that. Let me
Grayson West, the Administrator.
Okay. What else would sound good here? Ooh, the House of the Worm. That one is good.
Alright, hello everyone. My name is Dr. Miller, and the SCP we're going to be looking at today is SCP-1461. Object Class: Euclid. Special Containment Procedures. Site-6 has been constructed around SCP-1461. Task Force Lambda 30, Whiskey Tango Foxtrot, is on permanent assignment to reinforce Site-6 security. Any unusual activity from SCP-1461 is to be reported to on-site Level 4 supervisors, who will implement A47 daybreak procedures at their discretion. See
Oh yeah,
Site-6
if you guys
Standard
haven't checked
Procedures
it out, there is
Any
a
operatives entering
new short film
SCP-1461
that was just
should be
made.
fitted with full
Actually,
NBC-A,
pretty
nuclear,
well-funded
biological,
one.
chemical,
about
anomalous,
049,
protection, and armed
the shy
escorts.
guy. If you haven't seen it yet, I definitely would recommend
SCP-1461
it.
is
It's
considered
pretty
a
good.
high-priority target for the organization known as the Church of the Broken God, who have made attempts to breach Site-6 and access SCP-1461 since 19... Description: SCP-1461 is an English manor, circa 1890, with attached sublevels. It came to the Foundation's attention on November 1941, when the dwelling and its sublevel facilities vanished, then rematerialized after an 11-day period of absence. The surface portion of SCP-1461 is a 2-level dwelling with 12 bedrooms, 4 baths, 3 studies, a main foyer, ballroom, a library, a kitchen, and a pantry basement. Most of these rooms were converted into simple barracks prior to Foundation acquisition and are believed to have been dwellings for the cult. Site-6 staff have reinforced the structure and used the available space to house monitoring rooms and security forces. No anomalous activity has ever originated from the manor itself. The sub-level facilities
an
are
entrance.
accessible through the manor's basement. The layout and size of the sub-level facilities has yet to be accurately measured due to the anomalous qualities of the facility and hostile entities within. The facility is constructed primarily from concrete, iron, and brass, but also a number of exotic and/or unknown materials. The layout of the facility follows illogical routes and architecture. For example, doorways open into solid walls or open chasms. Stairwells ascend into empty space.
I do like this
etc.
one because it's
Extensive
roughly
damage is
based
apparent
on,
throughout the facility.
a real house.
Certain
actually.
sections have caved in and are filled with an unidentified gray sandstone that
the
exists
Winchester
nowhere on the
Manor.
Foundation's expanded periodic table of elements. The facilities also contain a wide array of anomalous artifacts, both active and neutralized. See Inventory Report 1, 1461, current. It is unknown whether the facility's erratic layout and artifacts were present prior to SCP-1461's disappearance, or if they were introduced during said absence. The sub-level facilities are extremely hazardous, with an extensive array of moving
And if you
mechanical
haven't heard of the
apparatuses,
Winchester Manor,
gearworks,
it is
pistons, steam pipes, and
pretty
coolant
interesting.
tubes that lack appropriate safety measures. The machinery is maintained by strategic placement of nozzles that dispense a black, mucus-like substance which is highly corrosive to organic materials, but also serves as a coolant and lubricant. Some sections appear to be emitting strong gamma and X-ray radiation, registering 75 counts per second at their highest recorded reading. The source of this radiation is unknown, as none of the machinery appears to be constructed with or houses radioactive components. SCP-1461 contains approximately 57 humanoid entities, including 7 former Foundation personnel, designated as SCP-1461-1.
Yeah, that's
These
the one.
entities,
That's
through
the
an
one.
unknown process, have been augmented with crude mechanical implants in an as of yet undiscovered section of SCP-1461. Each instance of SCP-1461-1 has been uniquely augmented, with little uniformity between them. The majority have been augmented with metallic teeth and claw-like protrusions on their hands, giving them lethal close-quarters combat ability. Other augmentations include iron bolts haphazardly grafted to the subject's bones, severe reinforcement to the spinal column, and replacement of one or more organs with prosthetic equivalents. SCP-1461-1 appears to possess no higher brain functions or retain any sense of self, acting entirely on canine levels of instinct and
Yeah,
intelligence.
apparently she thought
Instances
that
stick
she
to
was
one or
being
two
haunted
unit groups,
by
build easily hidden or
ghosts of the
defensible
people
nests,
killed by,
and attempt to collect
the
food
guns that
cannibalized
were
from one
made by
another
her family,
or
so.
from intruding Foundation staff. All instances of SCP-1461-1
contacted
are considered
like a
extremely
medium or a
hostile.
psychic and advised
It is
her
theorized
to do
that
that.
SCP-1461 itself may command SCP-1461-1. The speaking tube system throughout the facility has been observed emitting loud metallic shrieks that cause SCP-1461-1 to retreat from an area.
Okay.
In other encounters, a metallic odor identified to
So
be
now
blood
the
filters
arms.
through the ventilation
How am I
system,
gonna do the arms?
drawing SCP-1461-1 to the marked location. The frequency and accuracy at which SCP-1461 scent marks areas currently occupied by Foundation personnel suggests some kind of guiding, hostile intelligence.
Probably
At
get
least
rid
4
of
instances of
these.
SCP-1461-1 have received additional augmentation, replacing their esophagus and lungs with a phonograph device powered by SCP-1461's own motions. These phonographs emit a constant repeating stream of speech peppered with religious symbolism, but has provided no clues as to its creator or purpose. Addendum. According to records from 1941, the manor was owned by a Mr. and his family. A World War I veteran, Mr. was injured during the Battle of the Somme and shipped to a London hospital shortly before the war's end. His experiences appear to have had a profound psychological effect, giving him a nihilistic view of society. He constructed SCP-1461 with the intent of somehow ending or escaping the world. More information can be extrapolated from his journals, recovered from within SCP-1461, which I will now read. This is Evidence Summary V2008-5. Summary of Evidence from Recovery Site V2008-5. Day 14. I think it is important to provide context so future generations may recognize the urgency of my endeavor. In 1916, I enlisted into His Majesty's 5th Infantry Division, and in the bloody trenches of Europe, I witnessed proof of humanity's barbarism and the absence of God. Wounded in battle and wallowing in septic mud, the fever fell upon me, and with it came the visions. In my nightmares, I saw a great iron worm with jaws like that of a dragon devouring the fields of Europe. It had no teeth, but masses of grinding gears that tore flesh and stone into pulp. Its voice was the roar of falling artillery, its breath the blistering poison of mustard gas. Damned souls were belched into a starless sky like smoke, lost into a cold, indifferent void. I have no memory of my conscious actions during that time, but at last I found myself in a hospital in London. They told me the war was over, but the dreams did not leave. I would wake in a cold sweat, filled with purpose. Hastily, I scribbled down designs that had been burned into my mind, strange and alien architectures I did not recognize or understand. Finally, I returned home to my wife and children. Brave Simon and little Simone were a welcome escape from my fear, but my wife Clarice took notice. Shell shock, she called it, the word on the lips of every veteran's wife or mother. I tried to explain my visions, what instilled such fear in me, but she recoiled as if I were a mere madman. If only that were the case. The children heeded my warnings, however. They were rightly afraid, yet that was not my intent.
Okay, I need
Simon.
more ferrite dust.
Do not fear the beast. No, Simone. Please do not cry. Father will not let you be fed to the worm. The schematics, they must be the secret to stopping the worm. I feel a connection, a familiarity that likens them unto a great metal snare. With them, I will cage the beast. Day 825. So long in my workshops. So long in the belly of my father's home, free from prying eyes. Working, ever building. My wife questions, but refuses to listen. Only the children heed. Only Simon understands. A finer son no father could want. My family's wealth is modest, but the urgency that gives energy to my limbs also guides my thoughts.
I think
Through
roughly
clever
the
accounting,
shape
I can
of
take advantage of the
claws.
working class's desperation. So many seek work and honest day's wages that they do not question my motives. Some even show curiosity, enthralled by my designs. A work Leonardo himself would envy, they say.
Okay,
We are
so we're
more
gonna
than
have to
employer and
get
laborer.
us
We are a growing congregation.
some ferrite dust. So
Seers who know the truth. With the enlightened to spur the others forward, we make excellent time. They build and forge, dig and reinforce, laying pipes and wrapping conductors in rubber. On the surface, they speak of a Great Depression, of economic and social despair. Below, I lay the foundation for a greater tomorrow, but I smell the burning breath of the worm. It is close. We must hurry. Day 2398. I have seen the puppet of the worm, a puffy Austrian who commands power from the desperate, and in their despair, they hurl themselves into the grinding teeth of the worm and call themselves masters of 1,000 years. I see his face in the newspapers and scream at his empty, hateful eyes, but no one listens. No one sees. The nightmares have changed. Now there are more than mere soldiers on an apostate battlefield. Now there are prisons, camps of men and women and children, their flesh shriveled by cruelty and neglect. The worm feeds on them, and their souls are so weak they cannot even flee into the heavenless sky. I fear for them, but I fear for my own children even more. In my dreams, I hear them crying on the battlefield. They call out for God, for their mother, for their father. Only I can answer. Day 2567. Tonight, the vision came. I saw the worm, eating the rotten flesh of a dead world. The stars had burned out. The sun bled into blackness, until the only light was but a flickering candle, a torch held against oblivion. No Christian god holds that torch. No pagan worship. No politician or priest. I hold the torch. I stand within the snare, built of the iron of the earth and the blood of man, and I bait the worm to its doom. Day 2568. Success. The worm is trapped. Day 2569. My victory was short-sighted. The worm is caged, but it has already unleashed its plague upon us. The bombs fall upon London. War rages once more. The worm cries out from below, mocking me, even as it thrashes within its cage. The world is doomed. The work crews fear it, or maybe they fear me. Some want to leave, fight another pointless war for their homeland. Others stand behind me, terrified of what comes for us.
Okay.
How can we escape this rotting world and the locusts that devour it? Day 2569. I finally understand the purpose of my great machine. Not a cage, but an engine. A device that dwarfs all measure of man's science, Satan's magic, and God's miracles. A machine that will deliver us from oblivion. All it needed was a heart. A burning furnace to power it. How ironic that the worm that promised my doom is now the engine that will drive our salvation. The laborers who heeded my warnings have banded with me. Like a cult to its messiah, they gathered at my feet. As a dutiful shepherd, I will guide them into paradise. Some resisted. I do not hate them. I do not hate the people of this ruined world. I pity them. It was all I could do to instruct my followers that a merciful death is preferable to the alternative. Those who would not come with us were better off sent away by their kin than by some heartless enemy on the battlefield. I go to throw the switch of my great machine and free ourselves from the madness of the grave. Day 1. In one brilliant flash, my engine and the manor above have been delivered from the war-torn earth to a new world. This place is like our own, but different in many ways. A gray mist swirls around the manor, free of the stink of gunpowder and urban decay. The manor sits in a field of gray soil, devoid of vegetation. I hear no buzzing of insects. I see no sun or moon, just a dull, sourceless light. A dismal arrival, perhaps, but a welcome one. I broke wine with my brothers and sisters. Today we are saved. The engine has gone quiet now. The worm must have been consumed by its own fire. Some merciful part of my soul, so flushed with victory and new hope, prays the worm is at peace. Day 2. Where on Earth there would be day and night, here light never changes. Gray mist lingers, muting all sound. My followers look to me for answers. They say I am the voice of the engine. Surely I must know what to do. I push for patience and make promises I already begin to doubt myself. To satisfy their curiosity, I ask 3 of my bravest to venture out in search of anything. I try to reassure my family, but Clarice looks at me only with fear and hate. She has walled herself up in the bedrooms with Simone. Simon stays with me, though. He wishes to go out and see this new world. I refuse him. I will not threaten his life for the sake of knowledge. Even as I write these words, I am startled by what I see. This world was to be our safe haven, was it not? Day 3. The men I sent into the mist have returned, thanks to the lengths of string I provided them. No vegetation, no animals, no sun or stars, no civilization. This world is empty and gray. Not hell, like the world we left behind. A limbo. Does that make it better? Day 4. The dreams no longer come. Where before I could scarcely close my eyes without envisioning arcane machinery and prophecies of doom, now my mind is empty, and the silence mocks me. The food stores are being rationed. I do everything I can to convince the followers that utopia will come, that this is just a transition, but empty stomachs speak with more conviction than a prophet without a prophecy. A nurse named Eudora seems to have taken it upon herself to stir the hearts of the following, but her sermons cut short as I approach, and she regards me with stony silence until I withdraw. Day 5. My wife refuses to leave the bedrooms. She does not speak to me. Ignores the food I leave for her. I call for Simone, but they do not come out. How have I come to hate my wife? Her spite will not save us. 2 of the younger followers attempted to steal food from the kitchens. They talk of dwindling food stores, of mistrust, of strange noises coming from below, though my great engine no longer turns. If we imprisoned them, the others would have protested. Instead, I go to the others and tell them that the young ones have run out into the fog, intend to find answers. Not everyone believes me, including Eudora. Instead, they go back to plotting in quiet. I worry for my flock. Day 6. Now everyone speaks of sounds from below, of rattling pipes and grinding gears, though I assure them the machine has been shut off. To assuage their fears, I sent Danvers and Bertleby to investigate. We should hear back from them sometime later tonight or morning. No one questioned the fresh meat prepared for dinner. Day 7. My wife is dead. I grew furious at her petulance, and pried open the doors with a pickaxe. She had arranged Simone for bed, and then... Damn you, Clarice. You rotten whore. I wanted to save my children. Danvers and Bartleby have not come up. The grinding noises come every hour now, louder and louder. The house shakes around us. I fear the worm may not be as dead as I hoped. Day 8. Darkness has finally fallen, and with it came a terror I have never known, even in the trenches. Cold seeps in through the windows, strange shadows move in the fog, and I hear what sounds like footsteps on the rooftop. The house groans and shakes. The worm struggles. The courage of my followers frays. They want to go home. They want to be free of this horror and this damnable gray purgatory. Day 9. They have taken Simon. Eudora rallied the followers. She declared that the worm spoke to her in her dreams, and that she is the voice now. The worm demands sacrifice, she said, the son of the man who trapped it. I fought them. I fought. I would not let them take my boy, the only thing I have left. But there were so many, and they had gorged on the flesh of their fellows. I was but one broken man. I am no savior, no torch in the darkness, just a puppet to my own madness. I feel that every action I have taken, every vision and design I feverishly scrawled from half-remembered nightmares, was forced upon me by a cruel intellect that wished to test the limits of my sanity. They have taken Simon below. They will feed him to the worm. Let this be my prayer to the starless night. to a god that may not even exist. I will not let him be fed to the worm. I will hurl myself into its teeth, that my bones might clog its innards before I let them take my son. I'm sorry, Clarice. Day 10. God, the noise. It's almost deafening. Wheels turn and pistons hiss, and from the deepest reaches I hear a low, mournful bellow. I have brought my journal to give my mind something to focus on as I traverse the machine. Looking upon it with my sane eyes, I realize this maze is no work of logic. The tunnels bend and twist without reason. Stairwells lead to solid walls and doors open to gaping chasms. The transference to this gray world may have warped the machine. Or maybe I never truly saw it for what it was, and just built according to my deranged whims. I have heard and seen nothing of Simon or his captors. Doubtless their steps are guided by the same madness that has abandoned me, guiding them with fluid ease towards the worm's waiting jaws. I hasten my step, but I seem to be running in blind circles. If nothing else, at least I have a sturdy lantern and plenty of oil from the work crews that toiled down here.
Actually works pretty good as the
Day
legs.
11. Day and night are meaningless.
Just need more
in this
ferrite
limbo.
dust.
But down here there is even less measure to the passage of time. My journey has taken me deeper into some kind of processing factory. These automated devices gather gray sand from the bare rock, heat it into sickly-looking glass, and fill the created vials with foul-smelling chemicals I cannot identify. Against my better judgment, I crept close to inspect a completed vial. To my horror, a fully formed set of teeth began to take form. Another jar held an eyeball, like nothing found in man or nature. What is the purpose of this factory? What does it build, and for whom? Is this the result of my design?
Yeah, you know, those
Or some
lobster
mechanical cancer
like main legs
spread
are
by
like
the worm to
really,
twist the
really
machine's
thin,
function?
you know. So
My quarry seems to be in dispute now. I hear them arguing through the ventilation ducts and empty pipes. Eudora has taken my son deeper, leaving the others behind to harass my progress or simply abandoning to the whims of the worm. I have my pickaxe and my training, but I must move with stealth. I have not eaten in nearly 2 days. Still, Eudora's men still carry strips of meat. I also saw something odd near the lathe room I have hidden myself within. A painting of exquisite taste. It is the work of a master, but I cannot recall when I purchased it or what possessed me to leave it down here. The image shares a remarkable likeness to Clarice, smiling as though in happier times. It casts my thoughts to decades past when I was a different man, a smaller man, yet infinitely happier. Can knowledge so damn a soul? In a universe of such cosmic evils that I have witnessed, is ignorance truly the only bliss one can enjoy? Day 12. My dreams returned. Not of prophecy, but memory. I am with Simon in the London Museum. He pulls me along, eager to see art and history, the beauty of all created by man and God. But I cannot see the beauty. I only see bloody mud and blackened skies, the ugliness of man and a callous God. Simon walks on without me while I sink into a bench. The day fades away to night, and I sit in an empty museum of man's atrocities, the last living thing on a cold earth, overwhelmed by the weight of it all. I wait for death or oblivion to take me, whichever could stomach so pitiful a morsel. But instead, I feel the presence of another. I feel no light from this being, no warmth. Yet I sensed that this was as close to God as any being could be. It looks like a man, but there is a weight to him, as though something greater and stranger were squeezed into his skin. The child wants and does not know why. The gentleman speaks to me. The child grasps and doesn't know the danger. They burn their fingers and know they are not ready. Someday they will be. Someday they will give voice to the soul and sing with the essence of the universe. What gods they will be then. What galaxies they will weave with dreams and care. But now they are children, and children are selfish. They know only what they want. And then I awoke, back inside this machine, on a gray planet. So far from the world of my memories, it burdens my bones just to think of this inevitability. But I force myself to stand just the same. Simon cried out to me. I heard him far below. I called back to him, but I heard no reply. Eudora's zealots hound me relentlessly, and I fear some horrible change has come over them in casting their lot with the worm. They speak with slurred reptilian voices, or gargle as though choking. Some have even turned on their fellows. As I crept about the darkness, I saw one such rebellion. The man I had tried to lead to paradise fell upon his companion in an argument over faith, and I felt the heat of his lifeblood splash across my astonished face. The teeth, gnashing and ripping, so big and sharp, like the fangs of a wolf, yet also serrated as the blade of a saw. Animal and flesh, yet also machine. My surroundings have been affected by the same mutation.
Well, I mean, it
Rooms I
actually
do not
fits
recognize
having
bleed
these
into one
bubbles
another like
with
spilled paint.
with a lobster, you know.
An
It's
office
just,
with plush green chairs emerges
yeah,
with a warehouse
fits.
filled with crates that rattle and bang with some unknown stinking occupant. Ladders descended into pools of viscous liquid that have flooded what appears to be a school. Statues of marble and reliefs of brass decorate the ceilings and form the very walls. Rattling belts spew ammunition into neglected piles. Shells the size of my head clatter to the floor in automated factories, producing tools of death. I could not have made this. I could not have wanted such devices, and yet here they stand. And always the shrieking, the tapping of heating and cooling metals, the groan of pressurized hydraulics. I cannot remember what silence sounded like. Day 13 or 14. Eudora's followers no longer heed reason. The demented growl and spit and scavenge for food. Their ramblings the stuff of bedlam. Others have become something else. Feral, like lycanthropes of myth. They crawl on all fours, their eyes adjusted to the
Exactly.
gloom and shining red. Twin pinpoints of demon light. I can startle them with my lantern, but they always return, trying to surround me from all sides. Hunters they are, and fast as wolves, but their howls are the shriek of tearing metal. Eudora's voice taunts me now. It echoes up through the network of plumbing from every open ventilation shaft. She announces her glorious ascendance, of her devotion to the worm, and I hear true lunacy in her desperate laughter. It ripples through this whole machine as if she herself is part of it. I have found respite in a room filled with hospital beds and windows that look out into an abyss. It reminds me of the hospital I awoke from the war within, but I must pry my eyes away from that dark, for my mind cannot tell if I look into lightless cavern or starless void. Day 15. I have found Eudora, pursued by her followers, made monsters. I came upon a great cathedral made from organ pipes, marble, and the very flesh and bones of Eudora herself. Now I see how she could speak to me through the pipes, for her body has been torn asunder and stitched upon it. Her organs are pulled straight and taut through the tangled plumbing, her skin stretched and inflated with gases, her blood sizzling and steaming from the hydraulics. Only her head remains whole, wide-eyed and cackling. Seated on the pulpit of this temple to dementia, the monsters refuse to set foot into this hallowed ground. So I alone approached to speak with her. I demanded my son's return, but she spat her own broken teeth at me and said he had been taken by the worm, delivered to the heart of the machine where its mouth sat waiting.
It's
Furious,
Floor's off.
I fell upon her with vengeance, tearing what remained of her body from the brass organs around her. She died screaming, and at last was quiet. But then a great bellow interrupted from the machine, and a new voice spoke to me through the mangled organ. I am what you have made me. I am then, and I am now. I am choice, and I am tyranny. I am evil, and I am flesh. I am beauty, and I am chaos. I am the worm. Stricken, I fell to the blood-stained floor and wept. I cowered, screaming, not because of the words that spoke, but that they were spoken with my voice. At last, I had beheld the truth I had tried to bury so deep. The worm, the machine, the madness that guided my hands. It was me. I am the worm. I do not know what compelled me to stand. I did not feel hope. I didn't feel despair. Like an automaton, I could only move forward to face revelation. Day unknown. When I came upon the core of my great machine, I found my son. The machine was not a weapon to trap the worm. It was not an ark to carry us to salvation. I had sought to exile myself from a monstrous existence, and in my cowardice and fear, I became a monster. I became the worm. I built a shell to hide within, an engine to spirit me away from the pain, the despair that claimed my sanity, to abandon creation and God's cold distance. But it would not run without a catalyst. Simon. So full of hope and faith, so full of love and dreams, how I envied your strength, how I envied your ignorance. I yearned to wrap myself up in that goodness and hide from the world. I threw the switch of my great machine, and it drank the heart's blood from your lifeless body, pumping it into every pipe and piston. I believed your love would carry us to paradise. But it was tainted by my madness, by my act of murder. I dreamed of peace, and it brought me to unchanging limbo. I demanded paradise, but I deserve only perdition. And I was so horrified by what I had done to you, I could not bear to face it. I spoke as if you were there with me, smiled as though I could see you smiling at me. When Clarice realized what I had done, what I was, she took Simone away before I sought her out as well. This place is filled with your memories, Simon. Are they the last tattered shreds of love you have for me, or are they here to taunt and punish me, as the man-beasts that stalk the hallways surely must be? I do not know if any of you can forgive me. I only know that I promised to save my son. I promised to slay the worm. I leave this journal behind in the hopes that someday, somehow, someone will know what I did and remember the men and women I damned with my selfishness, my fear. I hurl myself into its teeth, that my bones might clog its innards. I am the worm, and the Ouroboros must eat itself. It is believed that Mr. had anywhere from 50 to 100 employees helping him in this task, the majority of whom eventually reorganized into a cult devoted to SCP-1461. An unknown number of these followers were present in SCP-1461 when it vanished, along with his wife and 2 children. To date, only 6 of these individuals have been accounted for. Shortly after SCP-1461 rematerialized, unknown individuals entered SCP-1461 before Foundation agents could contain the site. These individuals are believed to have been members of Mr. Fellowship who had not been present in SCP-1461 when it vanished. They have successfully extracted a number of potentially anomalous artifacts that have yet to be cataloged or recovered. Partial list of cataloged anomalous rooms. Of the 12 sublevels discovered by Foundation personnel, only 75% of its layout has been properly mapped, and an unknown number of levels are believed to exist further below. Each sublevel contains excavation, construction, and storage rooms, as well as rooms exhibiting safe or Euclid-level anomalous qualities and/or artifacts. For a full list of anomalous SCP-1461 rooms, refer to Document 1, 1461, Current. Gel Production, Sublevel 3. An automated factory that melts down the unidentified gray sandstone into glass, forms them into canisters, and fills them with a green viscous gel made up of a variety of exotic chemicals. Some of these jars contain fully formed teeth and organs whose DNA patterns match nothing found on Earth. Most of the jars have become inert, and their contents have decomposed. The gel production machine itself has been crushed by a cave-in. Pipe Hall, Sublevel 4. A hallway lined with approximately 2,450 pipes, constructed from brass, iron, copper, gold, bamboo, carved jade, and some kind of substance can clearly be heard being pumped through the pipes, but their origin and destination are unknown. Factory deliveries. Sublevel 7. A large unlit warehouse filled with wooden crates of various sizes. Unlike other storage rooms, which contain mundane materials from non-anomalous sources, the crates in this section are blank or branded simply with factory deliveries. Irregular patrols of the warehouse have revealed that the number and arrangement of crates changes, but as with the pipe hall, their origin and destination are unknown. On at least one occasion, muffled vocalizations can be heard coming from somewhere within the warehouse, but their source was never discovered. Orb Room, Sublevel 10. Speaking Tube Room, Sublevel 11. The multitude of brass speaking tubes connecting SCP-1461 appear to converge in this room on a large central pulpit. The partial remains of a human female have been recovered here, with evidence to suggest the body, specifically skin and intestinal organs, was used to perform crude repairs to some of the damaged tubes. Catalyst Room, Sublevel 12. A large chamber filled with a random assembly of gears, cables, pulleys, screws, and belts, all made of an amalgam of iron, tin, gold, and other metals, some as of yet unidentified. The assembly has suffered extensive damage, with evidence that a large section, approximately 12 cubic meters, has been violently removed. The location of this section is unknown. An elevated platform is suspended directly over the assembly. The platform features a metallic bed with the desiccated remains of a human male. The corpse's chest has been pierced by large syringes connected to a pumping machine, its design suggesting that it pumped fluid extracted from the syringes into the missing portion of the machinery below. At regular 45-minute intervals, the assembly attempts to self-start, but its existing damage prevents initialization. Friction heat buildup eventually results in an emergency shutdown that lasts until the machinery is cooled enough to make another attempt. Item V2008-5 was recovered from the hospital bed.
Where the hell's my ship?
This is a
it's all the
partial
way up
transcript of SCP-1461-1 phonograph recording. I am what you have made me. I am choice and I am tyranny. Forgive me. I am then, and I am now. What gods they will be, then. I am evil, and I am flesh. I am the trap, and I am the trapped. Stop laughing, Jimmy. I am beauty, and I am chaos. Children are selfish. I am the worm. I have broken, gone. Okay, I think that about does it for today. Thank you very much for listening, if indeed you still are. I know some of you aren't. And you are all dismissed. Goodbye. I would like to give a special thank you to Andre Bichert, Pierce M. Hamlin, Muslim Wiki, Jax Merrick.
Okay, well, let's see. How about then? Let's go with the Exploring series. Usually he's got some good videos. How about, let's see, what is, 3 portals? Let's do a longer one, yeah? You know what? I haven't heard that one. Let's do that one.
3 Portlands.
Or 3 portals.
Much of the events that occur in the SCP universe follow a similar pattern. An anomaly makes an appearance, the SCP Foundation becomes aware of the anomaly, and more often than not, they contain said anomaly. While there are a large number of paranatural humans or humanoids contained by the Foundation, it makes you wonder how many are not contained. Surely not every anomalous sapient creature makes itself aware to the Foundation, and sometimes perhaps they manage to evade Foundation capture. The place I'll be discussing today is one where anomalous entities can live in relative peace and harmony, separated from the rest of humanity, but not hunted down by the Foundation. 3 Portlands is a little different than a lot of other SCP concepts, and perhaps it's more than a little reminiscent of things like the wizarding world of Harry Potter, but that's just part of what makes the SCP universe so interesting. 3 Portlands is currently entirely made up of various tales, with no actual SCP articles, but this video will just be looking at the area itself. In short, 3 Portlands is an extra-dimensional space that exists outside of our normal universe, roughly 70 square kilometers in size. It is accessible through multiple portals, or ways, found in Portland, Oregon, Portland, Maine, and the Isle of Portland in the UK, thus 3 Portlands. It's believed to have been first created sometime after the incorporation of Portland, Oregon in 1851. Probably in the 1880s. Exactly who or what formed the extra-dimensional space and for what purpose is unknown. But it was already populated by the end of the 19th century, and in 1905, the British Occult Service negotiated the usage of 3 Portlands to house Shi refugees from the collapsing kingdom of Avalon. The specifics of these Shi entities are unclear as far as the SCP universe is concerned, but the Shi are creatures from Irish and Scottish mythology, commonly referred to as fairies, or elves. The Shi that ended up staying in 3 Portlands would greatly influence its future development, as the British Occult Service got caught up with earthly matters, leaving the residents of 3 Portlands to govern themselves. The principal entity of 3 Portlands is known as a Genius Loci, basically a protective spirit inherently tied to its existence. This spirit is sentient, as the BOS had negotiated with it to allow for the refugees, and they continued under the belief that the Genius Loci controlled the city, despite the formation of a city council by the residents. In 1922, however, the city council made an amendment to their city charter proclaiming that the Genius Loci is officially the mayor of 3 Portlands. In practice, the mayor rarely participates in decisions made by the council, and the council does not often even communicate with the mayor, leading many citizens to believe that the mayor doesn't even exist. Without any sort of policing agents within the city, however, paranormal criminals began using Three Portlands as a safe haven to evade earthly authorities, particularly U.S. custom agents, who were unaware of the existence of the city. Eventually, the BOS returned their attention to Three Portlands, realizing the importance of concealing its existence from other paranatural organizations. Despite their efforts, however, the US government became aware of Three Portlands in 1929, after Prohibition agents tracked a bootlegging group known as the Chicago Spirit to the city. The situation was concealed and handed over to the Bureau of Investigation, directed at the time by J. Edgar Hoover. Hoover pretty much went to
Unfortunately,
war
when it
with
comes
the
to
people of Three
SCP
Portlands,
content, it is
launching numerous
hard to
raids
find,
into the city,
you know,
eventually culminating in a
people
firefight
who are very,
between
very
U.S.
good.
agents
But
and the
you
city
know what?
council.
I do give him
Afterwards,
some credit. He's
Hoover blocked
actually
off
alright
all
at
portals
it.
leading in or out of the city, arresting anyone who attempted to use them. This siege lasted
Even though he
for 2
doesn't pronounce
months,
everything.
until the U.S. president
The greatest.
negotiated with the council to allow them their autonomy. But in return, U.S. federal agents would be allowed to operate within Three Portlands to a limited degree.
Yeah, just a little slip. I think everybody's
The
got
city council
something little
agreed
like
out
that
of fear
that
of
they
a
do.
full-scale war, despite protests from many of the city's residents. The British didn't really care for this arrangement, as they weren't too keen on Three Portlands remaining autonomous, and they also didn't want U.S. agents poking around. With the 7th Occult War breaking out in 1939, the British Occult Service abandoned their claim to Three Portlands to the FBI's Unusual Incidents Unit, in exchange for some wartime concessions. The 7th Occult War coincided with World War II, as Axis occultists fought against the precursors to the Global Occult Initiative. Three Portlands would be used to transport supplies and personnel between North America and Britain, and so eventually the city came under attack from Nazi occult forces. Thanks to combined efforts of the UIU, the BOS, and citizens of the city,
Ran out of
the attack was
this
repelled.
again. Let's start processing this stuff.
After the war, as more paranatural organizations came into existence, and more efforts were made by various governments to conceal the paranormal from the public, more and more anomalous entities were forced out of urban areas. Many of the entities found refuge in Three Portlands, and in 1956, Prometheus Laboratories began using the city for their parascientific research. Things went pretty smoothly for Three Portlands after that, with the UIU and the GOC both letting the city retain most of their autonomy, and both working to conceal the city's existence, primarily from the group they considered the greatest threat to Three Portlands' autonomy, the SCP Foundation. Although the UIU is often looked at as an incompetent organization, it's quite impressive that they managed to conceal Three Portlands from the Foundation until 1970. Because of this, the UIU were seen quite favorably by many Three Portlands residents, and a number of them would join the UIU as irregular agents. Despite the fears associated with the Foundation, though, Three Portlands continued to exist much as it had been. The paratech industry continued to grow in the city for some time, until the GOC decided they wanted a bit more oversight into what was going on in that field. So they formed their own free port called YourTech, where paranormal companies could develop technology sponsored by the GOC. In the wake of the Cold War, with the GOC bailing out a number of paratech companies in YourTech from bankruptcy, the waning paratech industry in Three Portlands effectively collapsed. At the same time, a group known as the Lighthouse Mafia grew to prominence for their illegal smuggling of paratech through Three Portlands. Things began to recover for Three Portlands around 2000, when a native citizen named Vincent Anderson started a company known as Anderson Robotics. Anderson Robotics became one of the most successful paratech companies, and Anderson made a number of generous contributions to the city. Since Anderson was well loved by the people of Three Portlands, he knew he could circumvent and eventually disregard a number of restrictions on paratech development without the UIU acting against it. Due to the laws in place that only the UIU have overarching criminal jurisdiction in Three Portlands, the Foundation couldn't do much against Anderson either. This changed in 2018, however, when it was discovered that Anderson had used androids to infiltrate the US government. An arrest warrant was issued, and Anderson disappeared, although his company still continued to run. In 2024, Anderson was finally captured by a joint task force between the Foundation and the UIU during a raid on the Anderson Robotics headquarters in downtown Three Portlands. The overt action led to a sharp decline in the UIU's popularity amongst the residents. That about covers it for the broad topic of Three Portland's history, so let's move on to talking more about the city itself. Due to the formation of the pocket universe where Three Portlands is located, it's possible to see any point of the city from any other point, making it extremely disorienting for newcomers. There are no natural astronomical or meteorological events in the city, but the mayor, the genius Loki that controls Three Portlands, somehow provides a day-night cycle and various weather events. The sun position is roughly linked to Portland, Maine, and the weather, generally rain, emulates the current weather of the three Portland regions on Earth. Most curiously, the ground surface of the city constantly expands away from the city center at a typically imperceptible rate. Additionally, approximately 3 miles from the city center in all directions is an impassable, invisible barrier placed by the mayor. The ground continues past it for a while, until it eventually degrades into the nothingness of unspace. The barrier therefore marks the outer edge of the city, but buildings are continually, albeit slowly, pushed out of this barrier. This limits the maximum size of the city, as well as forcing inhabitants to continue to construct new buildings. There are some structures that are anchored in place, however, and do not move along with the other buildings, creating other problems in regards to street grids and the ground surface. Most of these anchored buildings were created by the mayor, although some have been created by certain residents. The city center is a large anchor point from which the expansion stretches outwards, and so it's the location of various government buildings. The immediate space around it is devoted to a public park, due to being the most affected by the expansion. Other anchor regions include Prometheus Plaza, Memorial Park, and the campus for the International Center for the Study of Unified Thaumatology. Although the UIU are responsible for any criminal investigations within the city, Three Portlands does have their own local police department, consisting of a small number of officers, supplemented by volunteers and security golems. Their primary focus is on crime prevention, community outreach, event security, and assisting the UIU when necessary. The city itself is arranged along a polar grid, with a number of concentric rings of streets at irregular intervals spread out from the city center.
Fully enclosed.
Since these roads are not designed for motor vehicles, the city council maintains a ban on personal automobiles and heavy vehicles, with only a few exemptions. Several cab companies instead operate auto rickshaws, which are capable of navigating through Three Portland's narrow streets. There is also a mass transit system based on trolleys that run along all the major streets, which are free to use for anyone except for members of the UIU, who have to pay $20 a month. This money apparently goes to the J. Edgar Hoover Defamation Fund.
The J. Edgar Hoover Defamation Fund.
There is no local currency for Three Portlands, so instead most business is conducted using the US dollar and the British pound sterling. The barter system is also alive and well in the city, but often involves something called a GIAS contract. There are some specific details associated with it, but basically it's a limited form of mind control that forces an individual to follow through on a contract. This ensures that a deal properly goes through, but due to its potential for abuse, there have been calls for the outlawing of GIAS contracts. Water and electricity are all provided to the city by the mayor, but communication networks are not, making them a bit rougher around the edges. There is a citywide intranet that is not connected to the global internet, allowing for open communication between residents. This intranet has its own forms of social media, the most popular being Void, a local clone of Twitter. Prometheus Labs was responsible for providing connections to the global internet, and after the company's breakup, the city purchased a 50% stake in the subsidiary responsible for the internet connections, turning it into a municipal ISP. Outgoing internet traffic is required to pass through UIU filters to make sure the global public doesn't learn anything they shouldn't, which slows things down. I mentioned security golems before, as artificially created golems comprise almost the entire labor force in 3 Portlands. The local golem makers union, Golemancy United, maintains significant political and economic power in the city because of this. Golems are involved in manufacturing, construction, sanitation, and transit, allowing many residents to pursue creative and scientific endeavors in lieu of working. This, of course, has led to widespread unemployment across the city, as Golemancy United has fought to put off any ordinances about restricting the number of golems a company can employ. This is why the paratech industry is so prominent in 3 Portlands, as golems can't handle the sensitive manufacturing of paranatural technology. There is a large number of venture capital funded startups throughout the city, most failing within the first few months. As for education, there's no public school system within 3 Portlands, as citizens have feared that either the local government or perhaps other governments could use it for indoctrination. Most non-humans within the city utilize community schools, as the human population has the option of enrolling in one of the earthly Portland schools, a practice discouraged by the UIU. Homeschooling is of course also popular, and there are a handful of private for-profit schools. 3 Portlands Community College is the largest university in the city, open to all Portland's residents, and offering 2- and 4-year degree programs in both mundane and paranormal fields. It's not considered an occult college, though, due to only teaching introductory level thaumatology. The largest occult college is the 3 Portlands branch, the International Center for the Study of Unified Thaumatology, which offers extended degree programs focusing on advanced occult studies. ICSUT Portlands has the highest levels of enrollment of any ICSUT campus, attracting students from across the globe. It also receives a large share of the GOC's research contracts, partners with local companies on major research projects, and employs a large number of the city's residents. As for the residents themselves, about 80,000 people permanently reside in the city as calculated by the UIU, but a number of people pass through the city every day. As many as 2,000 live in one of the adjacent Portlands on Earth and commute to 3 Portlands for work each day, and many more travel to the city occasionally for supplies and services. Samples of the population asked about their nationality show that the majority are American or native to 3 Portlands, a small percentage being British or She, and some of them coming from elsewhere, or instead declaring that nations aren't real. As for species, about 80% of the population is either
that
human
sounds a lot
or
like
parahuman, including
the
cyborgs,
wackos who live in
psychics,
Portland.
minor reality benders, biologically modified, or shapeshifters. 13% are She, 3% are ghosts, and the rest are either intelligent animals, amorphous shapeshifters, spirits, major reality benders, or conceptual entities. Individual expression and liberty is highly valued among the residents, most of them distrustful of authority. Almost half of them identify as having no religious affiliation, although only 5% identify as atheists, and 3% identify as anti-theists, individuals that believe in one or more gods, and possess a desire to destroy them. The largest conventional religion is Shi ancestor veneration, with about 12% of the population,
let's see.
and Maxwellism, a
Okay,
branch
so
of the Church
that
of the
actually,
Broken God,
I think,
with 11%.
completes the outer portion of this structure.
I think after hearing about Three Portlands, you probably either like it or hate it. You can either see the fun potential of such a place existing in the SCP universe, and its similarities to the Wizarding World or Sigil from Planescape,
I think
or
I'm
you
gonna have
might
to
think
broaden
such a
out
city
this
has
tail,
no place
though.
in the SCP universe.
I don't
The
know.
beauty of SCP, of course, is that you can
We'll
very
see.
easily take
We'll
or
see.
leave any part of it. Personally, I enjoy little
let's
pockets of imagination, such as Three Portlands, a place where nothing really overtly horrific or unimaginable might happen, but is ripe for anomalous tales.
My favorite is still that Nuck one. That one is really, really cool. I really love that story. And I mean, it's pretty close to the you know, the actual folktale of the Nuck. Other than, you know, they don't really mention that it's an aquatic demon, but the lobster. Okay. So I think I am going to cut this one just about here. We got the exterior of the structure done, at least for now. I do think I'm going to end up broadening out the tail a little bit more. But I think I got the claws and the body and the legs all set up pretty nicely. Let's see, I at least have, you know, power hooked up for now. So, I mean, that's a plus as well. I think from there, what we're going to do after we broaden out the tail is probably furnish the interior. Maybe, I don't know, maybe build a structure within the structure, you know what I'm saying? But we'll save that for the next one. But yeah, thanks for stopping by, guys. Appreciate it, as always. And of course, you know, always helps to leave a like. And if you guys want me to build anything else, just let me know. But otherwise, we will be continuing on this structure later. I'll see you guys later, and peace out.